up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of Bad and Bard. It's been a little minute.
It's been a long time.
But we back and we in it.
Girl. Okay. So what's been going on, child?
Girl, I don't even know. It's been a nice little breaky break.
When was the last time we even?
October, sadly.
Was it October?
October.
God.
I know.
Yeah.
The time flew. But, you know, we had life. And you had law school final exams, law school bar application, which takes so much time, effort, energy, and coins.
Yes.
So life been lifing.
Life has been lifing.
Then we had Christmas,
Girl.
New Year's, family, child, all the things.
Yeah.
But we back. And I'm so glad to be back. And so let's get into it. We're skipping our hearsay for today, but we are having a little debate. For those of you who don't know, Kendall and I are pretty much diametrically opposed on most of our political thinking.
Which is so strange because we're very similar in almost every other aspect.
Right.
Like, we're so much alike. Like, she'll call me, I'm like, yes, girl, do that. She's like, I was already thinking that. And
exactly.
So we're very much the same in almost every other area, but it's like, this thing...
Like, even to the point where, like, we be on the same wavelength with, like, TikTok videos.
Yep.
Like, everybody in the comments be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm sending this to her. She sent it to me like, you think this is a little weird?
That looks strange to me. I don't get it. Yes.
Why are y'all hype over that?
Yeah.
Like, what is going on?
Right.
So, yeah, we be on the same wavelength about everything except for politics. And it's wild.
So crazy.
So, what are we talking about today, Cam? Let's get into it.
Well, I think we just decided to kind of have these conversations out loud because we're always, you know what, all I feel like you last night. I can't get my words. We're always like having these conversations on the phone or we're like texting about it. We've never really had it like in person to where we're like, no, this is how I feel. This is how you feel. But you know what? Maybe now that we have it in person, we might come out.
We might be on the same page.
We might be on the same page. Because you never know. When you're texting somebody, when you're on the phone, like, it's not the same.
Right. It's
not the same as in person. So
yeah, the messaging be getting lost in translation.
It do be getting lost.
Things might come off a little different. We usually are, like, debating via text or over the phone.
Yeah.
So
send in voice memo.
Yes, we're going to send a voice memo.
In a heartbeat. Yeah.
Yes. So we are going to talk about criminal defense because I used to be a criminal defense attorney, and really, truly, like, there's a lot of politics that goes into the criminal legal system, as y'all know. Like, these are oftentimes the actors are elected officials, and so there's politics all around it. Yeah. And so one time, Kendall and I kind of differed on some representation of certain people and that kind of thing. So we wanted to talk about what type of people I would represent versus which ones she wouldn't. Right. And specifically today, we are going to be talking about representing drug dealers. And so, I used to represent drug dealers, and let me not say drug dealers because it sounds real bad.
What are they?
I only represented one person who was charged as a kingpin, like, you know, drug dealer. Mm-hmm. Other than that, like, I was representing people that, you know, maybe had little life circumstances and they needed to exchange a little thing for a piece of change. Like, it wasn't like, you know, they were trafficking a little bit of cocaine. Oh. Or a little bit of marijuana.
A little bit?
And so, you know, we want to get into that. What it's like to represent these people, why I chose to represent these people, and, you know, so let's get into it. What you thinking?
I'm thinking I wouldn't do criminal law, period.
Dang.
So, I honestly don't have anybody that I would represent or not. I wouldn't do criminal law.
Because they're all just criminals, and...
I'm not going to say that they're all criminals, because I don't think that. I don't think that they're all criminals, because obviously there are some people who are innocent. There are some people wrongly accused. I understand that. I get that. I'll fight the power with anybody else. But, just like you said, criminal law is very political.
Right.
It's very, like, policy-based. Like, and my background is criminal justice. Like, I went to undergrad for criminal justice, and so... that was very much like a driving force of why I even wanted to become a lawyer, because I was like, I want to, give justice where there is none. I want to fight for people, da da da, whoop de whoop. And then I got in criminal law in law school, and I said, I hate this. This is so bad because it's so subjective. And I didn't think that. I didn't think that way. I thought it was, I knew everything wasn't like black and white. I knew there's some gray, but it's too much gray for my take, for my liking. Like, I don't like how most of the arguments are built off of, well, they broke their leg the other day and they don't feel well, and so they had to go sell 5 pounds of cocaine because they had to go pay the medical bill. Like,
criminal lawyers live in the gray. It's literally the facts. What are the facts? What are the facts and circumstances? What is the full, and defense lawyers particularly, we're going to paint the full picture. Yeah. We need to see, as opposed to like people like you want to focus on the incident.
The facts.
So let's say a person is selling drugs, because, for example, a client that I represented had a situation in which his mom died when he was young.
Okay.
He did not have a father.
Okay.
So he was raised in the streets. The streets raised him.
Okay.
He went into the foster system. First of all, rewind. Never mind. Yes, he went into the foster care system, and was abused, which is very common in foster care.
Right.
Ran away and essentially like lived life on the streets, and so he was made do with the circumstances that he had.
Okay.
And went into selling drugs to make a living. Because by the time he was 17, he had already gotten in criminal legal trouble, and by 18, he was already a felon. So he ain't got no real job chances in this country. You're not getting a real job, making no real money as a felon. And so he went into selling drugs and had children, and he doesn't have a wife, but he's got kids and a partner that he's supporting, and that is his lifestyle now. He can't get a real job per se, not one that's going to support 3 kids in this economy,
right?
And so he has a one-off little business where he's like doing legal things, where he's trying to make a little bit of legal money, but he's not pulling in enough. So he got to dibble and dabble in the streets.
Okay.
And I'm not saying that this is right. Let me clarify that. But he gets caught selling drugs through an informant and through one of his homeboys. And ultimately, we take this plea deal.
Okay.
Now, the state has a burden to prove, and the police have a job to do. They got to do their job right.
Okay.
And if you don't do your job right as a police, we're going to argue technicalities, and that person may or may not walk free.
Okay.
The Constitution says that everybody has the right to a defense attorney.
That is true.
All of us do.
We sure do.
Everybody has the right to be walked through the criminal process. It's called due process. Everybody has a right to due process, meaning that they can go to court, have their case heard, that the police must do things like read Miranda rights and follow certain procedure that's in the criminal code. The police have to do these things. And so let's say, for example, with the drugs, he gets stopped because allegedly a friend is not is speeding. The person's driving the car is speeding. If the cops can't prove that he's speeding, or all the time, frequently, let's skip speeding. Let's say that it's a broken tail light. Okay, there's a broken tail light, but you approach the car with a drug dog.
Yeah.
What's the reason you got the drug dog here, officer? We just here because my tail light is out. That should be a ticket. You're riding me and moving on, but you're asking me to step out of my car.
Okay.
Why are you asking me to step out of my car? You quote unquote smell marijuana. That's not true. CBD and marijuana smell alike. So is it CBD that I have in my car because I'm taking anxiety puffs here and there of my little vape pen?
You see?
There are all of these things that you have
anxiety puffs
that you're walking through. But why would you approach my car with a drug dog? You already had suspicion, right? There are protocols and procedures that the officer must follow. Now you're asking me to search my car because my tail light's broken? What's the cause? What's the probable cause that you have that I have drugs in this car?
Okay.
To say that I need to get out and you need to search it. And is it because I'm black? Because we already know in society we see broken tail lights lead to charges for black people higher than any other race. And so there are all these factors that I'm considering that I'm going to make as arguments because this person may have done their job correctly.
Okay.
And I'm not just pulling arguments out the air. If the police did their job, they did their job, and we're going to take a plea.
Mm-hmm.
But if the officer didn't do their job, it's there's no connection between the drugs and the stop. Now the stop is illegal. If the stop is illegal, if you weren't able to stop me, then you would have never gotten to the drugs that were in my trunk. So now the drugs are a part of the fruit of the poisonous tree doctrine.
Right.
Those drugs need to be suppressed because you had no lawful reason to search me in the first place.
Okay.
The search was illegal unless I consented to it. You didn't have a reason to search me.
Right.
And so now I'm in court and I'm arguing for a suppression motion because the officer shouldn't have found those drugs because he shouldn't have done the search.
Okay.
And now my client may or may not walk free.
Let's say that the stop was illegal.
Right.
I can agree that police have jobs, duties, protocols that they have to follow.
Right.
That makes sense. The stop was illegal. You get the case thrown out.
Okay.
So your client, free and clear of all charges. The thing I have the issue with is, I'm not saying that we should forgive the police, or even in that circumstance, I'm not even saying that like your client shouldn't, walk free, whatever the case. But what happens after that? Do you then go and, because for all of these instances that you said, all that still is true. All that still remains. The fact that his parents are gone, he grew up in the foster system, he can't get a job, he has 3 kids to support, a partner to support. All these things remain the same.
Mm-hmm.
So what are you doing for this client after you clear money charges, you're free from the criminal justice system? What happens?
What you're talking about is a systemic issue that I can't single-handedly fix as a criminal defense attorney. That's a system issue.
But you're putting him back into the system.
Putting him in prison is going to do what?
Who said prison? That's my thing of like, who said it needs to be prison all the time? I don't
agree. If he
agree.
goes to the criminal legal system, what else is going to happen to him?
There should be more options. I think that's what it should be. I think
but
it should be more options.
But that's a systemic issue. We don't have no other options.
So how are you fighting the systemic issue then? By being a criminal defense attorney?
I am fighting the systemic issues by making the police do their job and do it well. And as an alternative to that, on the side, I am fighting for restorative justice, which is what I do. As an alternative to the criminal legal system.
And what is restorative justice?
Restorative justice takes cases away from the courts and puts them back into the community for a community restorative process, which is how justice is done in several other countries, which is how it is rooted in Native American practices, because this is how things were done before colonialism and white folks came over here and imposed courts in prison and locked people away and threw away the key. In restorative justice, we say, how can we address the root cause of this issue?
Right.
And so we're repairing harm. We're trying to figure out who was harmed and how do we repair that harm. And after we address that initial situation, the drug deal, then we say, what resources do you need? How can we in community support you?
Right.
What jobs can we look for that hire people with felony convictions on their record? That is what I've done. And as a restorative justice practitioner, I sit and I reach out to people in the community to say, hey, listen, I know you own a garden business. I know this young man, he's brilliant. Yeah. He's been forced into this lifestyle, unfortunately, but he has made a change. He's willing to make lawful money. Are you willing to take a chance and hire him? And we're making these connections for them. And then we look at And some people don't do this in restorative justice, right? There are different models to it because other people in other places don't go this deep because they don't have the resources and they can't.
Right.
But thankfully in RJD, Restorative Justice Durham, we have the resources and the community to figure out here's what you need. We have mental health counselors on hand that are in our community, grief counselors that are willing to sit and talk to these people for free. They have volunteered their time and they're going to give you, I think it's only up to 10 sessions, unfortunately, but that's their free time that they're volunteering.
Right.
They're trained, they're addressing the system. Our current criminal legal system is not built to address people's issues.
Right.
It's built to address the crime in the moment, send people to jail, they get out worse than what they were when they went in, and then they come back out and then they reoffend, and it's a cycle over and over and over.
Right.
Also, it's a system that preys on Black and brown people, because if you only look for crime where Black and brown people are in communities of color, where you gonna find it? I have lived in predominantly white neighborhoods for most of my life. Most of my neighborhoods smell like marijuana on any given Sunday. They blowing it down. White boy Ed over here, who's rocking out in the band, is snorting a line of cocaine every Saturday, and I'm banging trying to get him to shut up on his guitar. The police ain't coming out there to arrest white boy Ed.
Right.
So crime is where it is, but our system looks for it in Black communities. And so guess who we see in the courts? A funnel of Black and brown people. If you walk into the court today, you ain't gonna see not one white person, maybe one, and they there on a traffic offense. And I ain't talking about drug trafficking.
Right.
And so how am I addressing those issues? I'm addressing those issues by taking a Black body out of that system and funneling it into another system. But for what we here for today, the criminal system, we have to work with what we have. And which side of that am I going to stand on? Am I going to stand on the side of the person who has all these systemic barriers, or the side of the state who the state is not in a place? In my opinion, the state is not in a place to condemn people because the state is the cause of the violence. The state caused and created these problems.
Okay. So I think my question to you would be, I hear restorative justice. Great. They're doing great things. But like you said, it's imperfect because RJD has the resources. RJF in Franklintown or wherever might not have those resources.
Right.
And also, it's volunteer. It's on a voluntary basis. This means after you've taken care of your child, your job, your family,
for sure,
then you may get to so-and-so in the street.
For sure. That's what community is.
And that's what community is. But I think my thing is, why wouldn't you? I think if I were in the criminal justice system, if I decided to go and practice criminal law, I would be a prosecutor. Because I think that is the best way to affect change. I feel like as a defense attorney, as somebody who's on the defense, here's the thing. I'll make a metaphor. When you're playing basketball, you're never going to win the game if you're only on defense. If the other team that's why they switch.
And as a prosecutor,
to score points. You have to be able to score points to win the game. If you're only playing defense, you'll never win the game. You'll just try to stop the other team from scoring points.
Facts.
All the time. So how are you ever moving the needle if you're never scoring points?
As a prosecutor, first of all, as the assistant district attorney, you represent the person who was elected as the district attorney.
Right.
You're working for them. They set the policy, the priorities for that office.
That's true.
They are in a political position because they are represented. People vote them into that position. They're not voting in people who letting Black and brown people off on the streets. So they have adopted a tough on crime policy to get elected. The people that they answer to in the community don't give two rat's asses about restorative justice. They want to make sure, because the society says these Black people who I'm looking at on the news every day are criminals, you need to lock them up. They have to answer to their constituents because they're elected.
But that's not for every district.
Yes, it literally is.
It's not every district.
Name one district that's not an elected position for a DA.
No, I'm saying like that's not every district that everybody in the community is
progressive
Republican.
Prosecutors. Name progressive prosecutors.
If I knew all of them.
North Carolina has 3 quote unquote progressive prosecutors. And when I say progressive, the only true one is in Durham, North Carolina, Satana DeBerry. Other than that, the ones who say that they're progressive are doing things to address fines and fees in the traffic system. That is their idea of creating change for Black and brown people. And yes, it's important, and yes, it is doing something, but it ain't addressing crimes. They're only addressing traffic issues for Black and brown people, because they know that traffic issues plague Black people the worst in this community. So that's their idea of being progressive. We don't have progressive prosecutors.
Yeah.
Our constituents won't elect them. There's nobody who's like, oh yes, I want to be a progressive prosecutor and can gather enough support to win an election.
Yeah.
So that's a very flawed system. You as an ADA work for that person, and that person is going to tell you, you cannot dismiss those charges. You are going to overstack their charges. You're going to charge them with this, and that. Prosecute it. You don't have a say.
I just feel like that's a very defeatist mindset, to be honest with you.
That is literally the facts.
I just feel like you don't feel like you could have any say. You feel like it's just that black and white. It's just you have to dismiss all these charges. You don't think the prosecutor, while yes, they're working for the district attorney, the elected official, you don't think they have any
they do have
type
discretion.
Of leeway,
they do have discretion.
Anything.
They do have
to
discretion.
Say, okay, you know what? I might have to prosecute this case, but I don't have to give him as long of a sentence.
No, you know what they do? They say, I'm going to use my discretion to put them in a drug treatment program. Okay, thank you. That's so great. That's going to address the root cause. Now, to get into that drug treatment program, there's a $250 registration fee. The person is poor. That's why they're selling drugs or using drugs. They can't pay the $250 fee.
Right.
They get into the drug program by the mercy of God. They've been able to get in. They are working. They miss one session, that's going to be a fee.
Yeah. They
miss one more session, they're kicked out of the program. Boom. You know why? Because it's a program of the state. The state don't give two shits about people.
Yeah.
And so they get in, they report to the prosecutor that they've missed 2 out of 15 sessions. It's unsuccessful. Now you're going back to prosecution. The prosecution's only job is, now you got to go to jail. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You had a job and you couldn't miss another day of work, and you couldn't complete the drug program because you missed 2 out of the 15 classes. So I'm sorry, that my only alternative now is to send you to jail. That's the reality of our criminal legal system. So as a prosecutor, what did you just do? Nothing. Nothing. They don't have any options.
Yeah.
Our system is jacked.
I just feel like, I don't know. I hear what you're saying, but I don't feel like it's that, I don't know. I feel like the way that you're talking is just so, I wasn't raised to think like that. I wasn't raised to be like, well, I'm not even gonna, because the way it sounds like, it's just like, oh, they don't care about us. And so you've already made your mind up to that they don't care. And so everything's going to go bad. And I feel like when you perpetuate that, that's how it happens.
There are some good district attorneys. I know several of them. I went to school with them, and I prayed to God when I was walking into court that was going to be the ADA that was going to be in there, because I could talk to them sensibly.
Yeah.
Have a few discussions.
So there are some. You admit.
Like 2.
Well, be 3, bitch. The hell? I don't get, if you're not going to play the game, how are you going to be on the sidelines being so upset about it?
There are some good district attorneys out there.
Yeah.
I also have to admit that my politics, my identity is also informed by my upbringing.
Right.
And I have people in my family who have been disadvantaged by the criminal legal system.
Right.
For one. For 2, I'm going to sound like a Republican when I say this, but I'm a Christian. I am.
Why do you sound like a Republican for saying you're a Christian?
Let me finish. Whose side was Jesus on? Was Jesus on the side of the oppressed or the oppressor? Because somebody asked me, how do you sleep at night as a prosecutor? And
as a defense attorney?
Excuse me, as a defense attorney, how do you sleep at night?
Yeah.
Jesus died for your sins, didn't he?
So you Jesus.
No. I am an advocate, just as the Lord was for us, as the oppressed. I believe it is my duty to stand with the oppressed.
Okay.
Every time.
I don't think we need defense attorneys. I'm never gonna fault you for being that way.
You don't think we need defense attorneys?
No, we need defense attorneys. Like you said, we have a constitutional right to have defense. We need people like you. But I think you're still going into it with the mindset of like, we're always in opposition. And I don't think it has to be that way. And I could be naive. And I feel like I am possibly naive in some of these subjects. And which is why I'm not in it. I prefer not to be. And I guess you could direct that back to me. Well, why don't you go be a prosecutor to do those things because I just don't. Even the prosecutor makes arguments like that. The prosecutor will pull from somebody's past in the opposite direction.
Yes,
they do. They've been continuously on the streets and all that kind of stuff. I just don't like that part of it. I feel like if we're talking about the facts, I like more of the law for being the law. I like rules. I'm a Virgo. We like it in black and white. Spell it out A to Z to me. And so I like certain parts of the law that's like, okay, this makes sense. I feel like criminal law, that's all it is. It's fluff. It's policy. Is they, their mom didn't love them and stuff like that. Like, golly, come on now.
I think that's a lot of what you see on TV.
I feel like that's a lot of what I see in my class.
Criminal law is based on statutes. There is the law. At the end of the day.
Yeah, but y'all are manipulating it in such a way that no, it's not anymore. When you go in and you argue, you're going to use some of the statutes, yes, but you're also using case law, which is cases that have come before. So you kind of piggyback on those.
Yeah.
And so if every single argument has been fluff, policy, his mama, you're gonna go off of what that last case did. So it becomes law. But I feel like that's all it is. That's all we ever did in class as well. When I was the only person, literally, we had a case about, I told you about this, about the battered woman. It was a battered woman. She had been in a relationship for several years with her husband, and he was beating her. And in the middle of the night, I don't know if it was exactly the middle of the night, but she waited till he took a nap, and she killed him, and she shot him, and he died. And so of course she was on trial for murder, and everybody in the class said let her go. Every single person in the class said let her go. She was being beat. She didn't know no better. Da 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 da. Whoop de whoop. I was the only person who said no. She should go. She killed somebody. Somebody's dead now. It's okay because he was beating her? Is that the law? Okay. He beat you enough, girl. Yeah, you get that one. You get a get out of jail free card. You endured enough. He should be dead now. That's how you feel?
That's not how I feel. No.
You think she should go to jail too?
No, I don't think she should go to jail.
So then how do you feel?
But that goes back to your argument earlier. If it's jail or nothing, I'm going to choose nothing.
No,
you
don't have
jail.
No, you need to go to jail.
And for what? Because you were...
She shot a man.
Okay, that was...
in his sleep.
Beating her.
In his sleep. He was not.
So what was she supposed to do? Get up and walk out?
Several things she could have done, should have done. And she even said in the notes, in the footnotes of the case, she said when he wasn't drunk, he was fine.
Yeah. So I don't know the full facts and circumstances of that case. But if I did, and there were other circumstantial facts to show that, for example, he did not permit her to leave. Like,
yeah, of course. There were several instances of where she tried to go. She went to her mom's house. He came and got her. She went back.
Right.
She had
four
more kids with him.
Did she get police intervention? Did she try to do a restraining order? Did she walk through? And a lot of times victims don't do these things because they have a victim mindset, right? Okay. They don't have the resources and they become true victims, and then there's Stockholm syndrome and all the things where they're falling in love with the person that is doing these things to them. So there's a psychological aspect that you have to consider as well. There are other factors beyond just she shot a man in his sleep. What are the other factors? Was she not permitted to leave? Could she not get out? Did he have traps on the doors? Was she locked in?
Is that the law?
No, those are facts. But the facts,
is that the law?
The facts and the law. The facts and the law go together to create a case. We're not just saying, "Oh, shot a man, boom, jail." Okay, what are the circumstances that created that?
Okay.
that's how we get defenses anyways.
Right.
I
agree. I'm not saying, but you said like it goes off a law too, but I'm like, that's a lot of
circumstances. What are the facts that led to that? We have to consider the full scope of the picture. We can't just say she shot him, sleep, jail.
But the law allows for that, does it not? The law allows for degrees of murder. The law allows for degrees of, meaning obviously it's not just, oh, you shot somebody, you go to jail. If that was the case, everybody would be first degree murder, the end, wipe your hands of it. There are people who are in jail for various forms of negligent homicide, things like that. So there are degrees. It's already in the system that, you know, you can get a lesser sentence for shooting someone, but you should still go to jail. I don't understand the don't go to jail part.
Now, maybe for that particular case, that may be something that I'm aligned with you on. That there should be consequences to that action. I would need to see the full fact.
But there are consequences to every action. That's what I'm saying. That there, granted, like you said, he for what I saw in the case, obviously the case is only going to give you a snapshot. Don't know everything that happened, but for the small facts that it did give, yes, she tried to leave several times. You know, he came back and got her. He was abusive. Like, think of any abusive situation you've ever known or ever heard or ever seen. It was that. It was almost textbook that. You know, he didn't allow her to leave. He beat her, all that stuff. So not to say that, like, she didn't endure and things didn't happen.
But she shouldn't have killed a man.
But you cannot go around playing God in that, since we saying God, we putting Jesus in it. You cannot go around playing God in that sense and then expect everybody to back you.
Right. And what was me?
Because if every woman who was beaten was allowed, this is another argument that, like, obviously a lot of people make, slippery slope. It is a slippery slope.
I agree.
To allow a woman who is beaten in that manner to kill her husband and get away with it. What are you sending the message to every other woman who is beaten? Every other woman who's endured?
Yeah.
What are you saying? Kill him?
Right. Let me ask you this, though. Sending her to jail is going to do what? Do you understand the conditions of jails and prisons? I just talked to somebody yesterday who is in jail, not for a situation like that. It was really a terrible situation. Went to prison. As soon as she got there, was sexually assaulted by a guard, which is very common. Sexually assaulted by a guard. So now her trauma is only getting worse and worse and worse. When she gets out, because there are no rehabilitative programs there that are actually going to do anything, she's coming out 10 times worse. The likelihood of recidivism is now skyrocketing.
Yeah.
To say that she's going to get out and do something worse, because you know what? She went to jail and it made her worse. And so when we're sending people to prison, I could see if we had some type of programs or something that really were effective to say, okay, like, let's make this person a better person so that way they get back in society and can be productive members of society. We're sending them into hell and then saying, come back now. The people who've been there, especially the people who've experienced solitary confinement, which you can get a quick lock-in solitary confinement for cussing at a guard. If you're there for longer than 14 days, you are, like, extremely likely of developing a mental health disorder if you don't already have one. And if you have one, it significantly exacerbates it. They don't get any rehabilitative services. They come out, they now have schizophrenia because they sat in a prison cell with no windows for 23 out of 24 hours a day. And we supposed to just say, here's society, welcome back.
Okay.
They can't function. Now they're making everybody else's life a living hell. What did that do?
The jails are bad.
Okay, so they should go and
you should not be killing people.
And just come out and kill somebody else? Like, what are we offering them? They're going to come out and they're going to reoffend. 9 times out of 10, they're going to reoffend worse than what they did.
But I feel like that's circular, though, to say the jails are bad. So what? So don't send them to jail? If those are the only 2 options?
I think we're on the same page in understanding that the system is flawed.
The system is flawed, but what are you doing by saying don't send them to jail? That's not then changing the system. You're just not sending people to jail who should go to jail.
Yeah, I think ultimately we are aligned and
we're aligned. We think the system is flawed. I think you should
work
from inside of it, though. That's right. If I were to do it, that's the way I would do it. That's all fair. I'm saying.
That's fair.
I feel like you're working from the outside, going against, because that's what I'm saying. Like, if people still need to, like, jails are bad. I don't think jails were ever designed to be a place to go. I mean, it should be. Granted, in the grand scheme of things, jail should be a place where you go to become rehabilitated, to get back into society. They're also places for punishment. You're supposed to go there and not feel good at all. You're supposed to go there and be upset and be like, I don't want to come back here. I don't like this. This is not good. If it was a place, people already, for the jails that they are now, people already will say, I'm just going to go out and reoffend because it's at least 3 square meals.
That's a systemic issue.
But I'm just saying, so make it what? More attractive?
No.
They're completely... Give them quilts now or something? What are you saying?
Jails in other countries look completely different. And they are way more rehabilitative than what we have. But all we know is the American system that locks people away and throws away the key. There are studies right now in Norway where they're looking at their prison systems. The designs of the prisons are designed to be rehabilitative. You know why? Because the state puts in funding to say, we don't want these people coming back out into our society and making it 10 times worse. The American system don't give 2 shits about people to say, how can we make sure that these people come home and they're not 10 times worse?
Right.
And that's my only point, is there are alternatives to doing things. Are the people who are in the system are not looking at alternatives. They're not funding these prisons. The prisons are severely understaffed and underfunded. The people inside don't care. Right. They don't care. And that comes from the top down.
Yeah. And
so it's like, I am going to work from the outside and do as much as I can for this person. Also, let's be real. This is also why I left criminal defense. Because I realized that I'm helping one-off person here and there.
Right.
I went into mass litigation so that I can change policy.
Right.
And so that I can represent people from the outside and hold the state accountable in mass litigation. I don't represent one-on-one people anymore.
Right.
I take class actions where people in prisons are suffering because none of them have the services that they're needing. They're being made worse. They're in solitary confinement for 23 out of 24 hours and are being tortured, not getting access to medical care, don't have hearing aids if they're deaf. And so I take mass litigation cases, but those are so far and few in between because it takes so much money, so much time.
Right. But let me ask you then, so, because obviously, yes, we need that too, but do you feel like when you bring these class actions, do you really feel that it changes the way that they're doing things, or do you think they're like, oh, we got sued, let's pay them off some money.
Okay, very good point.
Very good point. And they go back to what they're doing.
Very good point. That is frequently like the longer term, like they're going to figure out how to get back to it. But when we enter into these settlements where they're paying out money, they have to undergo surveillancing and monitoring. That's a part of our settlement agreement.
Okay.
For a certain amount of years.
Right.
In those years, in that settlement, you have to hire X number of staff.
Right. Including
medical staff. In X number of, or we get to bring you back into court. Right. Like it's a monitoring period. There are court monitors that the court hires to look to ensure that this is happening. And if it doesn't happen, we understand that we're gonna be back in court fighting again in 2 years.
Right.
Now the long term of that is when they come off of the monitoring, the system was gone system. Yeah. Somehow, some way, 9 times out of 10, I believe that they're going to figure out how to.
So how do you change the system then?
Start it all over.
Oh, child. She in dreamland now.
That's where I live. I live
how
in dreamland. How are you
going to start it over,
I live in dreamland. And that's what abolition is. I don't live in this where I'm practicing in it. I'm operating in it. But I believe that the only way it all roots to like slavery. You have to wipe it off.
That's just like saying send a unicorn, child.
And there are people.
You'll never get the unicorn.
There's so many abolitionists who are working today to create that dreamland society that we live in for Aubrey and for the other kids. So I'm going to instill these things into him. Okay. And, it's going to keep going. It's the same thing that MLK said. You think they were sitting around thinking that black people would be sitting on a podcast as two lawyers. No, that was dreamland. That was crazy.
I don't think that was
dreamland.
Outside of realm of possibility, though.
And if we live only in the you think that the KKK standing outside your door and you thinking like, wow, one day these people gonna be lawyers, when we can't even get what we need today. We can't even drink out of a water fountain, but one day we're gonna be business owners and lawyers and doctors.
Yeah.
That is dreamland for them back then. Out of the realm of possibility. When they out on the fields picking cotton, you thinking that, oh, one day my great granddaughter is gonna be a lawyer. That sounds absurd. When you over here picking cotton in this field, answering to this slave master, and your sister in there getting raped by the slave master.
I understand. I get, just like they say, we are our ancestors' wildest dreams. I think that is true. I think, and in that mindset, in that moment, no, they couldn't have necessarily saw it. All of them couldn't have saw it because they were, in their situation. But I still don't think it was outside, because my thing is, I don't start with slavery. I feel like that's counterproductive to the issue.
That's the reality.
That's what I'm saying.
Everything is rooted in slavery.
That is the reality of it. I don't think we need to keep going back and saying, it's slavery, because it's slavery, because slavery, we do know slavery. Like, we got to start from where we are. I'm not saying that it's impossible to change the system completely. I think that's within the realm of possibility, to change the system. But I'm saying, for those who are saying, like, completely shut it back down, then open it up, how and with who? Who you gonna get to do the things that these people were doing in the first place? Because you can't say every single
prosecutor. They're not going to do what they were doing.
So
we don't want to do what they're doing.
But who is going to do it, Aviance? If the people who don't do it right now, who aren't currently doing it, you think they're going to all of a sudden be like, okay, now that y'all shut it down, okay.
We're going to pause here. We're going to come back for a part 2.
Yeah.
The point of this is, what you're saying is, you're a reformist.
I
am an abolitionist. And those are two different things, but we can work together.
Yeah.
It's what I teach in my class. Majority of my students are where you are in reform. I am an abolitionist, but we can work together. I think that we can. I think that we can. Because at the end of the day, our goals are the same. The same. And so how we get there, that's going to take continuing conversation. And thank y'all so much for listening in today. Y'all gonna have to come back for part 2 of this conversation. This was real good. This was fun.
Was it fun?
It was fun.
Okay.
And we'll see y'all next time.
Bye.